Okay, sit yourself onto your lift and then come into a good cross-legged position so that you're sitting evenly into your seat bones. Just have a little wriggle about, make sure that you feel like you're sitting evenly. And then just take a few, hold onto your knees, take a few deep inhalations and deep exhalations, observing that as you inhale, your chest wants to rise upwards. As you exhale, it wants to drop down. So lift the heart area up to the ceiling, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears, taking deep inhalations and deep exhalations. Just allowing your eyes to become still in the sockets. Focusing on long, slow, deep, deliberate inhalations and long, slow, deep, deliberate exhalations. Just working to keep your eyes still in your sockets. And that action alone helps to quieten the brain. So allow the focus to become soft. Keeping focused on just a single spot on the floor. And then release your knees, keep your eyes still. Press the palms firmly together, lengthen from the armpits and into the elbows. Take a deep inhalation. And with an exhalation, allow your eyes to gently close. Just filling the lungs from the bottom to the top and emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom. Focusing on filling the lungs evenly and emptying the lungs evenly. Keeping your attention focused on the breath, on the sensations of the breath as you inhale and exhale. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Hold on to that feeling of abundance in the heart area, and then gently release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And then just raise your eyes, raise your head and open your eyes. Just hold onto your knees, elevate the heart area up to the ceiling, drawing your shoulders down. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across. Ribs and your shoulders, keeping your neck soft. Just looking directly forwards. Taking deep inhalations and exhalations. Come on then. And then turn to the center, elevate the chest, and then turn to the left. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Come on, Arthur. Listening to the breath. Elevating the heart area upwards, drawing the chest around to the side. And then come back to the center. Just come off your lift, sit back on your heels so the big toes are together, your knees are apart. Just allow the feet to settle, allow the shins to settle into the ground. Just feel how the legs kind of sandwich themselves together. If you've got tired legs, this is a good way to replenish the energy of your legs. So if you've been walking a lot, then sitting in virasana is a really good antidote. And then you can activate your virasana action by pressing the shin bones into the shin skin. And through that action, observe how the thighs become activated. And then from the thighs, you can lift from the hips and up into the armpits, elevating the heart area upwards, and then driving the heart area forwards, keeping the head lifted as you do. Bring your hands forwards, press the palms into the floor, and then try and push the floor away from you as you come down, keeping the heart area lifted, keeping the head lifted. Breathing even, deep inhalations and exhalations, stretching the arms away, and then bring the forehead down, turning the tailbone in. Just listening to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Just listening to the sound of the breath. Aiming to draw the tailbone down to the heels, lengthening the hands and the arms away from the armpits, lengthening from the armpits into the hips, from the hips into the armpits, into the elbows, into the wrists, into the palms of the hands. Drawing the tailbone down to the heels. So even if they part company a little, just walk the hands to a little closer to your head and then see if you can hit the heels down. If you're miles away, have a blanket or a block between the seat bones and the heels. Just lift your head, keep your right hand where it is, and then just thread the left arm underneath the right armpit, stretching that arm away, bring the shoulder down, bring the head down, and then press that left arm really firmly into the floor. Keep the right arm really firmly activated, and then try and roll the chest down to the floor. So you really open up in the inner shoulder blade region. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Spreading the hand, pushing that left arm really firmly into the floor. And then stretch back into virasana, sitting back on the heels, and then stretch the right arm underneath the left arm, keeping the left arm in virasana, pressing that right arm firmly into the floor so that you start to open up the inner shoulder blade region, and then just try to roll the chest down to face the floor. Just breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Listening to the breath. And then just stretch your arms away again. Just breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. And then come up onto your knees. Have your hands as wide apart as your mat. Have the feet as wide apart as the mat. And then lift the kneecaps. Come up into dog down. Lift the kneecaps. Lift the thighs. Just feel how you can stretch out of your morning fatigue and lengthen. Stretch out the joints, stretch out the muscles so that you can find energy where that tension once was. Keep breathing even deep inhalations from the bottom of the lungs to the top, and exhalations from the top to the bottom. Activate the thighs. Really work to lift the thigh muscle, the front of the thigh muscle up to the top of the leg. Just observing whether the two thighs are working evenly. Pressing the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs. Press the kneecaps into the sockets and turn the fronts of the shins inwards. So if I'm holding you too long in the pose, then just rest. But if you can stay and maintain, then do. Just oxygenating the blood with the inhalation. So deep inhalations brings in plenty of oxygen. And then step your feet forwards, come up into standing position. Just have your feet as wide apart as your mat. Come into Thur2 if you're protecting your back. So come into Thur2 with some blocks underneath your hands. Really activating the legs, extending the spine away. If you don't have any particular back problems, then we're going to do full Uttanasana. So have the feet as wide apart as the mat, turning the heels outwards a little, up into the chest, elevating the arms up to the ceiling, advisable. If you can, have the arms parallel to each other, palms facing each other, stretching into the little fingers and into the thumbs, stretching the fingers up towards the ceiling. Just spend a moment to just address the action of the legs. Does it feel like there is even action between the two legs? It is the left leg working as the mirror image of the right. It's the less enthusiastic leg trying to follow the more enthusiastic leg. Hook the thumb into the crease of the elbow, reach the elbows up towards the ceiling, hit into the elbows, keep the head lifted, keep the heart area lifted, hinging entirely at the hips as you come down and hang down in Uttanasana or half Uttanasana. Once you're there, hanging down, then just go back to the effort of the legs, ascertaining whether the effort of the legs is even, whether the left and the right leg are a mirror image of each other in terms of action, in terms of effort, in terms of activation. So we go through this cycle, this continual cycle of observation and activation in line with the findings of observation. So that engages the mind, because we drive the mind into the mode of observation, and it engages the back brain, the intellectual body, because it assesses what we observe. So observation, activation, we activate because the front brain, the mental body drives the mind into observational mode. The back brain, the intellectual body, assesses whether that is even, whether it's level, whether it requires activation, and then it goes back to the mental body for the activation. Release the hands down to the floor if you're in full Uttanasana. Just extend away into the chest, extending the spine away from the legs. Okay, and then gently just come up into a standing position. Just move the blocks out the way if they're there, and then come back up into Tadasana. So just spend a little time in Tadasana, just observing your breath. Breathe in from the bottom to the top. Empty the lungs from the top to the bottom. Bring your arms out nice and wide, in towards the chest, and then step or jump the feet nice and wide. Turn your left toes in, your right leg and foot all the way out. And then drive the chest to face the front. Just keep this left shoulder towards the back of the room, rotating the abdomen from the right to the left, turning, reaching over, trying to keep even length in both sides of the torso, and then just slide the right hand down to meet the shin, so that you aim for evenness. Keep rotating that top shoulder towards the back of the room. Keep rotating the abdomen from the right to the left, and then reach up. Go back to the feet. Feel how the feet are connected to the ground. Lift from the feet into the shins, into the hips, activating that observation with the front brain. Use the back brain, the intellectual body, to assess whether that back leg is working as hard as the front leg, and activate it more if not. Lift from the hips up into the spine, feeling that the spine extends evenly on both sides. not just on this upper side, but the right side of the torso extends as well. So allowing the intellectual body and the mental body to be in communication, to commune. Come back to the center. Just release your hands, swap the feet around to turn the right toes in, a little left leg and foot all the way out. And then bring the chest to face the front. Activating the legs from the feet up into the shins, into the kneecaps, into the thighs. And then remember to turn the thighs outwards so that you've got space in the hips to come to the side. Keep both hands on the hips. Keep this right shoulder rotating towards the wall behind you. Don't lose the legs as you reach over, keeping this side, this left side of the torso long as you reach over. Keeping that top shoulder rotating back. Keeping your attention in the feet. Just slide the hand down the shin. That left hand. Make good contact. Push the heel of the hand into the shin. Lift from the heel of the hand into the armpit. And then reach up with the top hand. Going back to the feet and back to the legs. Back to the hips. Into the pelvis and up into the spine. Reaching evenly out from both arms. So evenness is a real mainstay of our yoga practice. Breathing evenly. Come back to the center, bring the feet parallel and then step or jump feet back together and then come back to Tadasana, just observing the energy of the breath. Stretch your arms forwards, interlock the fingers right into the webbing of the hands, turn the palms all the way out. Don't worry about cracks and pops, that's always good. And reach up. Turning the fronts of the thighs inwards, tucking the tailbone in. Again, just using the mental body in connection with the breath to excuse me, engage with the activity of the breath of the body. Using the intellectual body to assess that activity and to correct it in commune with the front brain. Just release your arms, swap the interlock of your fingers so that the other index finger is on the top of the stack, and then raise your arms over your head. Feeling that you can lift from the hips into the armpits, but keeping the shoulder blades gathering together so that the front chest remains broad. And then you can breathe more easily. Breathing from both lungs. Employing both lungs with evenness. And then release your arms, stretch your arms down to the floor. feeling the energy in the arms from padangusthasana. Okay, so we're going to do a standing forward bend, padangusthasana. So you may need a belt for this, so you can just hook the belt underneath your big toes, bend your knees to get there, and then have the belt hooked into the big toes, and then you can just hold onto the belt, and then coming forwards with a straight back, you just walk your hands down just as far as you can go. Try resisting the temptation to do this, to try and get the head down to the floor, because then you kind of hunch the back and your back will never ever get there. So it's lifting up into the chest. Just everyone bring your hands onto your hips, and then turn the fronts of the thighs inwards, and then just hinge at the hips. You're only going halfway, or however far you can go without any resistance. So we just come forwards, but we don't come forwards like this. We don't come forwards with the head. We come forwards from the hips. We keep the head and the chest lifted. So we're going to come all the way down and then get hold of the big toes with the index finger and the middle finger. Hook them underneath the big toe, or you're just going to use the belt. So have the feet at least hip width apart, turning the toes inwards, activating the kneecaps, and turning the fronts of the thighs inwards so that you feel that the backs of the thighs can broaden outwards. Lift up into the chest, reach your arms up to the ceiling, and then hinge at the hips, keeping your arms lifted, keeping your head lifted as you hinge at the hips, coming forwards and lengthening into the fingertips, palms facing each other at this stage, and then reaching, even when you can reach the floor, keep reaching into the middle of the room, keeping the front chest long, and then hook the big toe with the index finger and the middle finger underneath the big toe, and then the thumb wraps around the outside of the big toe. And then activate your legs, turn the thighs inwards, and then lift the seat bones away from the backs of the thighs. So turn the fronts of the thighs inwards so that the backs of the thighs broaden outwards. Lift the seat bones away from the backs of the thighs. And then project the chin and the chest forwards, making concaveness in the shoulder blade region. Keeping the head lifted, keeping the sternum bone driving forward. And then bend your elbows out to the side. If you can straighten your back at this stage, bend your elbows out to the sides, having a tug of war with your big toes, like you're kind of trying to rip a nail out of the big toe, not out of the big toe, sorry, that sounds horrible. A nail out of the floor, pressing the big toe down into the floor. So we draw the chest forwards and down. So forwards and down, not just down, forwards. So that's from the hips and from the pelvis up into the chest. Trying to draw the body through the space between the legs, but all the time just keeping the chest lifted, keeping the chest long. And then release your toes, just come into Thur2. And then bring your hands into your hips and then come up into a standing position. And then just back into Dandasana, just lifting up into the chest. So padangusthasana just really lifts the energy of the chest. Just breathe even deep inhalations and exhalations. And then bring your arms out nice and wide in toward your chest, and then step your feet as wide apart as you can go for prasarita padottanasana. It's always useful to line the heels up with the edge of the mat so that you know that your heels are in line. So nice and wide with your legs. So you might want some blocks in front of you like this. If you can't reach the floor, turn your toes in, so you can bend your knees a little to do that. Turn the toes inwards and then straighten the legs. The legs need to turn inwards for this, so that the backs of the thighs turn broaden outwards, because it's again a forward bend, and that turning action of the legs gives us space to come forwards. It gives us space in the hips. So lift up into the chest and then hinge at the hips, turning the fronts of the thighs in, the backs of the thighs out, lifting the seat bones away from the backs of the thighs, and then reach down and find the blocks or find the floor. Go back to the legs, activating the legs evenly. Observance and activation. Projecting the chin and the chest forwards like we did at the first stage of padangusthasana. Lifting the seat bones, projecting the chin and the chest forwards. If you can go further, then maintain that extension of the spine. And then bring the head down onto the floor. You can use blocks under your head if it doesn't reach. Have the heels of the hands in line with the heels of the feet. The elbows parallel, fingers pointing forwards. Hit the legs back so that the weight isn't in your head, it's in your legs. So bring the weight into the heels. If you can reach around the outsides of your ankles. Just breathing even breaths, working for even action of the legs. Just listening to the breath, listening to the action of the body through observation. So there should be no weight on your head. It's like you're going to kick up into a headstand, but there's no weight on your head. There's a little weight on your head, but most of the weight is in your legs. So there should be minimal weight on your head. Okay, bring your hands back down onto the floor. Bring your hands back so that you come back into the first stage of the pose. And then palms down onto the floor, and then bend your knees, and then step or jump your feet back together. And then gently coming back up into Tadasana. And then raising your arms up into Advisable. Breathing even deep inhalations and exhalations. And then release your arms. And then come down into cross legs for a moment. Just sitting in cross legs, just holding onto your knees, lifting up into the chest. Just taking some deep inhalations and some deep exhalations. Just observing how your energy has changed. And then stretch your legs out into dandasana. You might need a belt for your feet. So have the belt around your feet, have the inner edge of your feet together, or at least the big toes together, and then activate the thighs so that they turn inwards, so that you're effectively hitting the heels apart. And then elevate up into the heart area. Just lifting up into the chest. If you struggle to lift the chest, then sit on a block or on a folded blanket. If there's problems with your back, just stay at this stage, just feeling how you can open up the legs from the hips into the heels, lifting up into the chest. If there's no problem with your back, then just gently inch yourself towards your legs in paschimottanasana, but never letting the abdomen sink down to the floor. We're lifting the abdomen away from the legs, up into the chest. So just a little bit at a time, coming into paschimottanasana. Extending the spine upwards. If you can reach around the feet, then do. But all the time lifting the abdomen away from the legs. Lifting the abdomen up towards the diaphragm, up towards the collarbone. Keeping the heart area lifted. Keeping the head lifted. Bending your elbows out to the sides if you've got hold of your feet. If you can reach around the outsides of your feet, then do. Just coming forwards a little at a time. Just working with your own restrictions and never pushing yourself beyond your obvious ability. And the obvious ability is basically the ability to work within your own resistance. So your body will tell you, it will feel obvious whether you can come forwards or not. You know whether you shouldn't, and if you shouldn't, then don't. And then gently release. Just observe that quietness that comes over the brain from coming out of a forward bend. And then just sit yourself back in cross legs, just traditional cross legs. Hold onto your knees and elevate your heart area up to the ceiling, drawing your shoulders down. Just focusing on inhaling and exhaling, feeling that the breath is level and even. And then gently turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across your ribs and the shoulders. And then come back to the center lift, up into the heart area. Take a deep inhalation and then turn to the right, to the left, sorry. And then come back to the center. Good. And then just to come down onto your back into supta, baddha. So the soles of the feet are together, the knees are apart, and then lengthen down into the floor. You can put blocks underneath your thighs if there's stiffness in your hips. But before you go straight to the blocks, just push the heels together really firmly. So rather than just a completely passive pose, this becomes a pose that we can control. So push the heels together, push the outer edge of the feet together. Of course, if that's still uncomfortable in your hips, support them. Turn the tailbone in, draw the abdomen towards the spine. Just breathe evenly, resting your hands on your lower ribs. Stretch your arms up to the ceiling, interlock the fingers, turn the palms all the way out, and then lengthen your arms along the floor. Extending your arms away. And then raise your arms, swap the interlock of the fingers, and then stretch your arms again along the floor, trying to straighten the elbows, squeezing the outer elbows inwards. Stretching the fingers towards the opposite wrist. And then just release your arms, just rest your hands on your lower ribs for a moment, let the feet, just the knees just fall apart. Just resting into the mat. And then bring your knees together. Draw the knees together. Just have the knees together and the feet apart for a moment, just to rest into the spine, rest to the hips. And then draw your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from top to bottom, from side to side, just a gentle massage on the spine. And then just come up onto your elbows. Just stretch yourself along the center of the mat. Guide yourself down, just move any equipment out of the way that might be in the way. And then just rest down into the floor. If your head rolls back, put a blanket underneath the head, otherwise just use the floor. And allow the body to release. Let the body relax into the floor. Just allowing the physical body to release into the floor, becoming heavy on the floor. So that out of that heaviness, you can observe the feeling of lightness radiating out from the bones and into the muscles, into the organs. Into the flesh and the skin. Using the in-breath and the out-breath to distribute that feeling of lightness down into the tips of the toes, the tips of the fingers, and up into the top of the head. Again, working for evenness of activation of lightness. Just basking in that feeling of energetic lightness. And then wiggling your toes, wiggling your fingers. Just bringing energy back into the body, bending your knees in toward your chest. Just have a little rock from top to bottom, from side to side, just a gentle massage on the spine. And then roll over onto your right side. And then stretch out the top leg, come back up into seated position. Come back into cross legs with the hands in the Namaste, just a final spinal lift. Draw in your breath in through your nose and down into the abdomen. Become conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this morning, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy that the extensions and the forward bends, and the twists and the reclining poses bring to the body and to the mind. Just acknowledging gratitude for starting the day with positive action and positive energy. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to acknowledge that positive energy you have created inside. And then send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then when you're ready, just gently release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you. So hopefully you feel as though you've really lifted your energy, given yourself lots of good mental energy as well as physical. So you start the day with a feeling of positivity, and we can't ask for more than that, can we? So thank you very much for joining.